Let's say I got a gun in my hand. 6 slugs, 6 points of view. Materialism. Let's say I got a book in my hand. 50,000 words, 50,000 translations. Idealism.
Bonjour, hi. You're now listening to Esprit Des Corps by PM Records on n10.as.
Kochina Rude is a drag queen in San Francisco who works in harm reduction for the Department of Health in California. She has taken upon herself as a mission to promote harm reduction within the gay and nightlife communities in San Francisco. Recently, she was invited to be part of a panel for the White House on how to save lives from overdose. We have a few questions about her work and how the White House visit all played out. So let me start. First off, I think I want to make a point to direct people to your Substack, kochinarude.substack.com. There is a really good article that covers a lot of the backstory of the conversation we're going to have about your White House visit and what led up to it. But we're going to do a quick rundown before that because it kind of, your whole life kind of, or at least recent times, has kind of led up to what happened, I feel like. So to start, could you give a little background of what happened and the events that led up to you being asked to visit the White House?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Patrick. I appreciate being here with you today. And yeah, I totally went to the White House, which is pretty nuts. I attended an event called the White House Challenge to Save Lives from Overdose. It was hosted by the Office of National Drug Control Policy, which is a component of the executive branch of the United States government, which means that basically it's led by the sitting president, right? And so in this case, for now, it's Joseph Biden. The reason why I went there in October was because I worked with an agency in San Francisco called the San Francisco Entertainment Commission, which is responsible for both promoting and regulating nightlife in the city and county of San Francisco. San Francisco is unique in that it is its own jurisdiction, like a county government system. For people who are familiar with the United States local governments, this will make sense because it's just one city. So it's like one city that's basically like its own county. So they have unique parts of their government. And so in any case, for the past 3 years, I've been distributing naloxone at my drag shows that I host on the weekends. And the San Francisco Entertainment Commission has asked to work with me a few times around awareness and distribution of fentanyl test strips in bars and clubs. And so because of a recent press release, basically announcing their partnership with me for Overdose Awareness Month in August, someone, I guess, from the White House learned about this. And so they were invited to speak on this panel for this event, White House Challenge to Save Lives from Overdose, in Washington, D.C. So they asked me to go with them. And in my opinion, rightly so, because it's basically my project, and so I actually didn't speak on the panel, but I attended and I was invited as a guest, and I decided to go in drag because that's the character that I'm associated with. And I wanted to just be as visible as possible. That's what that assignment was about for me. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
A little bit?
Yeah. And we're just going to go right into it. So regarding sort of systems, your work with harm reduction during drag shows, which I would say is independent of all of that, as well as somewhat your day job, which I would say is fully in a system, and your involvement with the Nightlife Council, and in addition, doing something like being part of a White House panel. What are your thoughts about working with harm reduction inside of state systems and outside of it? And what do you see either as more effective?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, this is something that I've had to ask myself a lot. Just, I think that my answer is informed by my backstory a little bit. Like, I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, born and raised. I've lived in San Francisco and Oakland. I live currently in Oakland technically, but I still work in San Francisco for the past like 10 years. And I've been doing harm reduction related work either as like a volunteer or as an intern. And then I got a job in the Tenderloin managing a HIV program. And, you know, here I ended up working for the California Department of Public Health, doing programmatic technical assistance around hepatitis C for local health jurisdictions, which is just a fancy term for health departments. And I mean, the obvious, you know, thing I feel like I should acknowledge is, you know, Audre Lorde saying you can't dismantle the master's tools from within the master's house, right? The reason why I decided to go into this bureaucratic system for like my day job is because I wanted to do something that wasn't just working at a nonprofit where the funding and what I was able to do was like fully contingent on, you know, basically we were bending over backwards for. I was working at a sex worker clinic in the Tenderloin, and I would leave my home in Oakland where I live to go work in San Francisco. And, you know, I live on the sex worker stroll in my neighborhood in Oakland. And so I would interact with and like pass by like a dozen street-based sex workers on my way to work, like every day, to go to my day job where I would maybe help like one or two or three sex workers, you know, in my whole workday. But I couldn't bring my resources that I had there to Oakland, where the sex workers I knew actually were, because the funding that we had was contingent upon the city and county of San Francisco, right? Mm-hmm. And so this was just a very obvious discrepancy that frustrated me. And so I kind of already felt bound by the systems of bureaucracy when I was doing that work anyway. And so what I decided to do is just go all the way upstream and just get a, you know, bureaucracy job. So I'd have the benefits and stuff. But also I could also just do harm reduction whenever I want, you know? So I started just throwing condoms and like mints and, you know, naloxone into Ziploc bags. And I would walk my dog around my neighborhood and just give them to the sex workers. I found that they actually, they really love stun guns. So if I can have stun guns, then I'm more, you know, they're more likely to take the rest of the condoms and stuff from me. And that way I don't have to fill out any paperwork. I don't have to sign. It's not for deliverables, you know, I can do it whenever I want. And that's the thing that I want people to know, is that harm reduction is not something that you have to do with a job. And for me, because I have experience working in like drug user health systems, like specifically Hep C, I'm able to bring my knowledge of that to my work and my day job. And I find that being a harm reductionist is helpful for that, but I'm not there with like an agenda of like, I'm going to save everybody here. You know, it's like, the way I see it is like, if everyone who did everything were a harm reductionist, then I feel like this would be a better world for everybody. And you can just be a harm reductionist in your life. I'm actually, I identify as an anarchist, and I think that's, you know, very ironic because I work for a state bureaucratic system. And because I'm mentioning it, like anything that I say here you know, is not on behalf of the state of California. It's just my perspective and my opinion. So I'm only speaking for myself independently. And that includes also with the nightlife policy group. Like I'm independent from them as well. So that's just like an occasional collaboration rather than me doing like working for them or anything like that. And that's important to me because I need to keep my independence. That's the only reason why I'm able to get anything done. I feel like that's the only way radical things happen. There's like a common parable that describes kind of the public health format where there's like two people who are on the side of a riverbank, and they keep seeing people who are like bodies that keep floating up on the side of the riverbank, and they keep pulling out these bodies, you know, and then finally one of them decides to run upstream, and then it's just like, well, where are you going? I need help pulling these bodies out of the river. And then the person goes, I'm going to go look upstream to see what the problem is. The person finds out that, you know, there's no railing over like a cliff face. And so people keep falling over into the water and drowning. Right. And so then what they do up there is they try to address the system and the problem itself. You know, so just like the way I see it, it's not that I'm trying to dismantle things per se, you know, like independently. I think it's like it takes all of us to do something together. All of those things are equally important in order to and effective. You can't just be someone who's reacting to problems. You also have to try and do something to prevent them. That's my opinion.
I'm going to ask a next question that is similar to the one before, but it's kind of extrapolating. So for like really huge and complicated problems, such as the fentanyl crisis, just do you think working inside systems is better than working outside of them to tackle the root cause, like in a geopolitical holistic way? Because I want to explain a little bit more. Within punk, as a punk, we are fairly good at manning our own community, but the problems within punk are outside of them too. We're being impacted by them. To really get past that, how do you best see to do that? And is that with working within systems?
I think I just will say, like, again, like I said, that it takes everybody to get something done. And I, just as much as I believe it's important to try and work within systems to leverage them when it is possible, I don't believe that that alone is going to solve anything. You know, a lot of these systems, including, you know, bureaucratic systems, government systems, they're not designed to be active and to implement things, you know, before they happen. They're designed to be reactive. And so I think that there's this push-pull that's really important for people to recognize. My take is that, you know, if you expect anything to get done from within these systems or out of these systems, you need to like ask for what you want, and you need to like make demands. Because the worst thing that will happen is that those demands aren't met right away, perhaps. But unless you make those demands and put pressure on these systems or bodies of control, then they won't do nothing will get done about it anyway, right? And so they're just going to have this antagonistic relationship. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but you know, I think that it's important to maintain a really strong sense of self and not think of yourself as like an extension of a system per se, in the way that, like, the way I see it is I'm leveraging a system that exists for my needs. But even if I wasn't, I would still do something else to meet needs, because there's lots of needs. And I think that that's what we have to be cognizant of. We have to take a step back and look at, like you're saying, how all these systems work in order to get anything done to help people.
Okay. So let's go inside the belly of the beast, the White House, the thing we're all here for. Yeah. Did you know that you were going to be snatched to the nines in full drag? And like, were they alerted? And how did they react to it when you showed up?
I will say that the White House staffers were all actually very nice. I didn't encounter nearly the amount of friction that I expected. I think if anything, they were like, okay, look, here's some LGBT who has a point to make. You know what I mean? But when I got the call inviting me to go with the San Francisco Entertainment Commission to go on this trip, I actually, my first emotion was dread. Like, I was like not excited about this. Actually, I was like, are you kidding me? Now I'm being asked to do this, like during a time where like this administration is like giving billions of our tax dollars to a government that's committing genocide upon an indigenous population in Palestine. Like, are you joking me? Like, I was really conflicted about it. And the person from the Entertainment Commission, he's lovely, and we work together, like I said, a lot. He supports my work and he's a fan of me. And like, I don't mean to disparage him in any way or in their project. You know what I mean? This is really just like my very personal feelings. He was, going to do it anyway. He was the one who being asked to go speak on a panel, and he was going to do it with or without me. And the way I saw it was, I was like, well, if they're going to be talking about me there, then I may as well be there because they're talking about me and my work on the one hand. And then on the other hand, I was like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity that I think that I was afraid I would regret it if I didn't do it. But there was like a good, like full day when I was like, I can't do this. I'm not going to go. I don't believe in this. Like, and the reality is that it's a dog and pony show. That's what they do there. They have like, representatives from all over the country who, have good optics and they're doing things that like look like they're helping, and they just have them talk about it. And it's like a cute little press feature and we take a picture and that's it. Right. How effective or what that actually is for changing anything like substantially is questionable. But I thought that, well, how powerful would it be if I went in full drag as my character and was just there, like even just my physical presence there. I felt like I was asserting something. And the fact that I'm just speaking freely about it now, I feel like is a success because I'm still an independent person who was able to do that. I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody but me. And I actually find solace in that for, having gone. I wore a Palestine pin. I was like, I know what this is. I know what this probably looks like to some people. I kept it a complete secret until after it was over, partially for that reason as well. Because they'll also like uninvite you if they find it on your social media. You say something disparaging about the current administration, so I like locked down my socials and everything. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. But basically, my article on Substack, like you mentioned, does go into like kind of my whole roller coaster of emotions around it in detail. But yeah, I did what I did.
And do you have any regrets a few months removed now I have in my question working with, but that's a stretch, showing up at the White House?
I think my only regret was not taking a video of myself walking down those halls. Like I kind of just forgot while I was there because I don't think I'm going to get invited back. You know what I mean? But even more than that, I regret not turning on Sniffies and seeing like which closeted perverts in that building were using, like cruising for sex. That's my regret.
Okay. Like one more question. So drag is often humorous and use humor in your work. I've seen the videos with the harm reduction during the drag performances because, what would a drag performance be if it's not funny? How do you see levity as an important aspect of talking about serious issues such as harm reduction?
Thanks for that question. That's been a really big sticking point for how I've been able to do any of this. I had to learn, and it took me like at least a year to figure this out, how to deliver important information to a crowd of people who are not there for a lecture. They're there for a party, right? I learned that, proselytizing and finger wagging at a group of drunk people is not effective for them to learn. I lose people's interest after 5 minutes, so I got to keep it snappy. And so And, just like you said, the virtue of being in drag, it's like a big, campy, elevated event, like, going to a drag show. So why bring the mood down, right? I don't know there to ruin the party. And so I had to figure out on my own, like, okay, this is what works. This is what doesn't work. And so now I have like a way where I just describe a scenario that I hope is relatable to people. Your friend Becky is at the bar. You guys go into the bathroom. You do a little bump out of her baggie. Becky, after a few minutes starts to turn blue in the face. Everybody say, "Oh no, Becky." And then I had to do a big call and response thing. And then I try to act out as much of what the steps are, call 911, use naloxone, wait 2 to 5 minutes, use another dose if you have to. I teach some rescue breathing. And the most important thing is I try to end it on a high note. I feel like, when we're talking about overdose deaths, it's a very serious topic. And this is something that has been hitting close to home for people in nightclubs more than ever, with the fentanyl crisis. And so I try to end it on a high note of we've, as a queer community, have gone through this before. We've had unique health challenges that have affected us. And so we can rise to the challenge again. And we can all do this together with or without, systems that be, right? And I really try to impress that upon people that you don't actually have to ask permission. I didn't ask permission before I started distributing naloxone at the clubs. I just did it. And I was doing it for a full year before anyone noticed. I didn't ask the health department. I didn't ask the city. I just started doing it. And that's what I try to tell people, just like with my day job. I'm like, you don't have to, you can do things on your own anyway. People a lot of times ask me, how do I get involved? How do I do? And I'm like, you just put naloxone or you put condoms in a Ziploc bag and go give them to hookers. That's what you do. That's harm reduction. You give needles to people who are living outside. You give them meals. You ask them what they need and what they want. The other thing is that you need to meet the community where they are. And what that means is you need to ask them what they need. And that's how you stay in touch with what the community needs. A lot of people think they know what the communities need, but they don't actually know because they're not asking. And so that's a big part of it too. It makes people feel like I'm listening to them. And that's how I feel like I am able to engender trust and continue to do this. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I want to reiterate, everyone, if you could go to kochinarude.substacks.com. It's going to be in our Instagram description for this video. And I cannot wait to meet you and have the 11 p.m. fans meet you at our event in February. So that's where I want to end it. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
resist, start again. Attack us, one more share. We're gonna chase again. Come on, guys, one more share. If only you show us you care. If only you show us that you care. We're both downtrodden by the people who've got big plans for this nation. You still need to test animals, the chemical warfare weapons effects, and riot control agents, and radiation. And while you're ignoring, there's a big bad cannon. They beat you over to yourselves, and show all animals you care. So come on and free us! Free us! Oh yeah! Thank you.